the Vice President of Operations, and she oversees this center. And then I'd love to introduce you to the amazing local team at the San Luis Valley Animal Center. Ta-da!
Hi everyone, I'm Jen Thomas. I'm Katie Holman. Jamie Dillon.
I'm Cody McEwen.
And this awesome team runs this entire shelter. So come on, let's go take a look. You can probably see a lot of the back of me in this, but sorry about that. This is obviously our lobby. We are an open admission shelter, which means anyone who needs us can come bring an animal to us. This is also a shelter where this space is where we do our adoptions, our pet admissions, lost and found, returning to owners. So if you've lost a pet in the valley and you want to see if there's a place, if we have the animal, this is where you'll come. And so we're right by the airport in Alamosa. Right off the lobby is our adoptable dogs. You want to talk about them?
Sure. So this is where you're going to come if you want to adopt a dog from our new shelter. We have some really amazing kennels. They have 2 sections so that we can separate the dogs. The puppies really want to say hi. And that way when we clean, we can put the dogs on the other side so that they can not get wet, and then we can clean the other side. Hi, honey.
Hi, guys. So this is our adoptable dog area, but if we have more dogs than can fit into this space, we have some flex areas that we can use for more adoptable dogs. And we have a whole separate area for adoptable cats we'll talk about in a minute. Right outside this door, we have some outdoor play yards. And these are amazing spaces where we can get the dog some exercise. Not only do we have these chain link fence areas, but there's a perimeter fence to make it super safe for the animals as well.
This is a super important area for dogs who come in having lived outdoors or who are really used to spending a lot of time outdoors. This is also a great place where volunteers who want to help at the shelter can come and spend some time socializing, exercising, and playing with our dogs while they're waiting to find their new homes.
And we're going to really be recruiting volunteers to help give these dogs the best experience they can have in the shelter. All right, let's go back in. So this first room is called Dog Flex. Again, it's another space for dogs, very similar to the adoption space that we just went through. And this is the space where animals come in. Either it can be open for adoption if that's what we need, but it also can be for dogs that are in process, that are waiting to be up for adoption. So that might mean that they have a medical or behavioral issue that we need to address before they're ready to go up for adoption. It might mean they're waiting to be evaluated just so we get to know them a little bit better and we can tell our adopters about them. Every one of these rooms do have a door out the back to the exercise yard, so we have easy access to exercise all the animals.
We really like how this area has so much natural light. We tried to incorporate natural light throughout the shelter so that the animals have the exposure. It's better for their behavioral and their overall health.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the next room. There's a couple rooms that look like this. So this space is our dog stray hold space.
So if you lose your dog and you come here to look for it, one of our team members will walk you through this area and help you find out if your dog's here in our kennels. We also have all of these lost and found dogs on the website so that before you can come in, you can look online and see if your dog is in our care.
Yes, and we are actually working with the city and the county of Alamosa and surrounding areas. So if they pick up a stray dog, they will bring it here, and then this is where you will come and find that animal. We hope, we have a metric we keep, what's called return to owners, and it's a rate that we want to see always increase. We want our RTO rate to go up because that means we're successful in reuniting people with their pets.
It's return to owner. RTO means return to owner. And it's one of the big reasons that we love the idea of this centralized shelter. Anywhere in this region, if you lose your animal, this is where it's going to be. And so it makes it a lot easier for people and their pets to be reunited.
Right, which we all want to have happen. And again, access to the outdoor play yards. And I swear it's a different room. We're not going in the same room over and over again.
This one's green.
Yeah, see, different color on the wall. So in this hallway, anyone who knows the Dumb Friends League will notice some things that look familiar. Our core colors, our brand colors, the gray, the green, the blue. We also have our mission and our core values, which is solid throughout the entire organization. These are the things we truly believe in. And down here, it's no different than it is up in the city. All right, we're going to take you in the back of house now. One very similar room to what we just looked at.
This one's periwinkle though.
Yes, new different color on the wall. So we really are going to different rooms. This is another dog holding space. We're calling it quarantine. So it might be a bite quarantine that we have to keep animals in the space for longer periods of time. However, if we ever had an outbreak of disease, we could isolate animals into this space and make sure it didn't get spread throughout the shelter, which is something we really did not have at the old shelter.
I can show you the guillotine.
Sure.
Show this. So this is how, when we have a dog in here, we can close it so that we can clean one side while they're on the other side. If there's two dogs together, like two dogs that came from the same home, we can also separate them to make sure that they're safe eating apart from each other and all of that stuff. So it just gives us even more flexibility with the space and with the way that we house dogs here.
Yes. All right. That's the last of our dog spaces. So now we're going to go into show you this room, and this is evaluations. So this is the space that any animal that comes to us, this team here will do a full evaluation of the animal, understand its behavior, any medical needs that it has, and then what else do they do?
They're going to vaccinate the animal to make sure that we're preparing it for the best trip through our shelter and into its new home. They're going to microchip the animal so that when it goes to its new home, it's already microchipped. And then they're going to determine what's next, whether it needs surgery to be spayed and neutered, whether it's ready for adoption, or if it's going to go to one of our other shelters where it's going to have access to our other resources and potentially be adopted into a different community.
Yes, and they'll deworm them in this space as well.
Yep.
And if it's a stray, we're not going to go through all of that until we know that the owner isn't coming back to claim them. We'll make sure they're safe as far as vaccination is concerned,
Yep.
but we won't put them through all the other things. You know, mentioning the other shelters, it's really interesting that we have a really perfect system here. So if we have animals in this shelter that people in this community want to adopt, we're going to be able to make that adoption happen directly. But if we have animals that are staying in the shelter for a long period of time and they're just not getting adopted, we have a huge demand in both Denver and Castle Rock where we can transport those animals and get them the best adoption opportunity that they can have.
Yep. We also have additional behavior and veterinary resources there. So if an animal has a special need, we may have the things that it needs there and not necessarily here. So we can send it there, get the treatment it needs, and then decide what makes sense for it to be adopted.
And we might end up sending some animals down. What we know is that there are some, especially dogs, that do very well with some space and some land, and we don't have as much of that opportunity up in the front range as we do down here. So there might be whatever's the best for that animal, we're going to create that outcome. All right, let's move on.
All right. Office.
It's just an office. Feel free to check it out.
All right, now we're heading into adoptable cats.
And I want to point out the sign because Science Diet and Hills are supporting this shelter as well, and they're feeding all of our animals in the shelter, and we're really grateful for that.
So I think this is just a super exciting space for all of us because we have never served cats before, and really there hasn't been a great resource for cats in this region. And so this is to have adoptable cats, a place for cats to go in need. This is such an exciting change for this region.
Yep, and those who know me know how special cats are. I love dogs, don't get me wrong, but cats are very, very special. So I'm super excited that a community is going to value cats differently by having an opportunity to adopt them in the local area and also bring them to us if they can't keep them anymore. So that's going to be huge. We did our first cat adoption about an hour ago. Yep. So we're super excited. It's happening. We're ready to go.
Yep, it already happened. The first one is done. We're on a roll.
Yep, and this is the space where they are going to get adopted out from. So there's a door right there where they can come right in from the lobby. They don't have to go through that whole maze we just went through. In the lobby, we went to the left. They can go to the right, and they will see cats. Let's go on. All right. So the very center of the shelter, if you look at the whole building, is right here. And for good reason, it's food prep.
Yeah.
They like to be fed around here.
Yep. So this is where every day they're going to start by feeding the animals and giving them any medications that they use. And this is the place where they're going to prep all of that to make sure that the animals get appropriate food for whatever their medical needs are, their age, whatever conditions they might have. All their medications get doled out. This is where they clean the dishes. All of the work that goes into really the feeding, medication, and everything like that for our animals happens here at the center.
And it's always this clean. All right.
So far, anyway.
So far. So like we talked about the dog holding area, this is the cat holding area. So cats that come to us that either they're on a 5-day hold for their owners to reclaim them, or we're waiting to evaluate them, they need surgery or they need behavior care, they'll hang out in here and get care in here until that happens. We received, can't really see them very well, maybe.
You can see this one.
Okay, we received 3 kittens today.
Oh, are they in there?
And yep, they're right here. They're adorable. They're only 6 weeks old, so they're going to have to hang out for a couple weeks before we can adopt them. But kittens actually came to a shelter in the San Luis Valley.
Woohoo! That's what we want.
That's what we want to see, is get them the good homes that they need.
And they will be spayed and neutered, vaccinated, and everything before they go to their new homes.
And those kids get to wait a couple weeks before they have to have the surgery.
Little small, little young.
Yep. All right, so that's kind of the adoption sheltering part. We actually have a veterinary hospital here as well. So let's go take a look at that. We'll go in here. So this is the exam room, and we have a pull down table that we can use. We have a dog scale on the floor, and this is where we can do physical exams. And then in this space is actually our surgical area. So this is a wet table, and these 2 tables are used to prep animals for surgery. We have a room right over here that is used for recovery and pre-op. And that's where animals hang out before surgery and after surgery. So, and they actually have a lot of natural light in that room as well. So there's no one in there today, although we did do surgery today.
Yep. We had dogs and puppies in there earlier.
All right. Did you want to say anything?
Hi, guys.
And so this is where we prepare the anesthetic drugs for the patients, and we get them under anesthesia here and prep them, shave them, scrub them, and then we'll bring them into the surgery suite. And just like you've seen in many veterinary hospitals, we have a surgery suite with the monitors and the anesthetic machines and the surgical lights. Initially, we're doing only shelter animals in this space, but eventually we hope to serve the community for people that can't afford that veterinary care to help with that.
Yeah. We also have some other staff members that you guys didn't get to meet, but we have had amazing staff from the Malone Center in Denver and the Buddy Center in Castle Rock down here for the past 10 days, helping the team move in, training, and really helping us get settled and figure out how to make the most of this shelter. So It's been such a team effort. It's been awesome.
And we're so grateful for everyone leaving their homes, coming through snowstorms to come down here and live in Alamosa for just a little while to help. So thank you. Prepping instruments. So after we do surgeries, we have to clean the instruments and then we have to sterilize them. And that's what this space is.
Thank you, Cody.
All right, so that's most of the sheltering area. Another office, feel free. This is our garage, and a lot more is happening here than just a garage. So this is the space where any of the animal control folks, sheriffs in the community can come at night 24 hours a day, and they have the code to this door, and they can come in, they can put animals in these kennels right here. So when we come in the morning, we can go through the eval process and make sure they're fine. They'll let us know if there's anything that needs care. If it's an emergency, they'll go to an emergency hospital. But if it's just a stray or an animal that needs a safe place to stay for the night, they'll come here. And you want to talk about that room?
Sure. This is our dog isolation. This is a place where we can isolate really anything, but it's specifically built for parvo. If we have a dog that needs to be isolated for parvo, we can put them in there. It has an entrance and exit to the outdoors, so they don't have to walk through the shelter. And that way we can just more enhance the way that they're isolated.
Right. And so that door goes to the outside, so they don't have to bring that disease through the shelter. Unfortunately, we're seeing quite a few dogs with parvovirus and some with distemper in this community, and those are completely preventable diseases with vaccines. So we're going to be really working at vaccinating this community and this community's animals as well.
The other thing we do in this garage, it's a perfect place to pull our van in and load animals when we are going to do a transfer. That way they're safe from escaping or anything in the process of loading them onto the vehicle. It's climate controlled the whole time, and then they just pull out and get on their way on the road.
Yep, 4-hour drive to Denver.
Yep.
So we're getting
the pass is open.
Yeah, as long as the pass was closed today, so some of our team had trouble getting over, including Matt, who's running the camera right now, and Lindy, who's helping. All right, we're gonna go into the break room and sit down and do some questions and answers, and we'll see you in just a minute. Oh.
All
right. So I'm Lori Peterson. I'm the Vice President of Development and Fundraising and Marketing and Communications for the Dumb Friends League. I was one that got caught on the other side of the pass early this morning, but very, very thrilled to be here today and tomorrow. We have some questions that have already started coming in, but April, I want to start with you and ask you, why San Luis Valley?
You know, it's a great question, and there are so many reasons why San Luis Valley. I think, you know, it was a little bit of happenstance initially. The league did really want to impact animal welfare in rural Colorado and create socially conscious sheltering opportunities throughout the state. That is part of our strategic plan. About 3 years ago now, we actually had a county commissioner, Darius Allen, reach out to one of our team members at the league and say, hey, we need to build a better shelter, a bigger shelter in Alamosa. And as a county commissioner, I want to do this before I leave my office. Could you just tell us, what we need to think about when we build the shelter? And it was really just a question for a request for advice. And then they started seeing how complicated it really is. And then we were realizing that kind of synergy between our mission and what they wanted to do in the Valley. And it evolved into a partnership, and it really has felt like a partnership since the very beginning, in that the city and the county have donated the land. They've donated a lot of the tap fees and done a lot of the site work to make this happen, and they're all in and all supportive. So it was part of our strategic plan, and it was also that it was the right time and it was the right people and the right support in the community.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Katie, what are you most excited about this collaboration?
Oh, it's so hard to pick one thing. So I'm going to tell you two things that I'm most excited about. The first one has got to be serving cats. It has been years of hearing people say cats need more resources in the San Luis Valley, and to finally be able to answer that and say, here they are. We're starting with this. We're going to figure out what's needed and then figure out how we do it. That is just, I think, going to be really amazing. And the other thing is having a central place where people know that if they lose their animal, they know what to do. They know where to go look for it. And there's a pretty good chance that this is the place it'll be. I'm really excited about that and about how we'll be able to help reunite more people with their pets.
That's fantastic. And I was actually here when the 6-week-old kittens came in, and it's almost as if they've never seen kittens. Everyone had a kitten, and it was just really exciting. And they are precious. There's 3 of them. So if I don't take one and a puppy home, it would be.
We don't let her.
No, I'm not allowed. So a question from the group, how long will an animal be up for adoption here before they would potentially be transferred to Denver and the Front Range?
That's a great question. And there isn't going to be a standard policy, at least not right off the bat. We're going to see how much interest there is from the community in certain animals and what animals seem to be most in demand. What we don't want is for an animal to be stagnant and for us to feel like we don't have it on a path to getting into a home. And so we're really going to assess it on an individual basis and figure out how the animal's doing. If it's doing great and it's spending a lot of time out in the play yards and people are interested, we just haven't found the right fit, we'll probably keep it here longer. We just want to really do what's best for each animal. So we don't have a standard time. We're just going to see how it goes and see what works.
And the flip side, the other thing we really want to be mindful about with this is that we don't want to take all the super great, well-behaved animals out of the community. We want to allow this community opportunity to adopt those animals as well. And so we need to really find that balance.
Here's another really great question. With the San Luis Valley being somewhat different than our Denver shelter and geographically, what medical needs do we anticipate being different here versus what we see in the Denver metro area?
So I don't know that we know yet. I will say that frostbite, I'm concerned about because it gets really cold down here. And I do imagine that there is also going to be more interaction with wildlife. We've already seen some animals that have been sprayed by skunks and some other things. So not that we don't see that up in the Front Range, but not as much. Any other ideas, Katie?
No, I mean, I think same thing, we're going to see. So I think to me, the big question in terms of medical needs, because we haven't served cats before, we have some question marks around what we're going to see with the cats that come in. And we'll just roll with it.
And as far as medical needs are concerned, anyone who knows any veterinary technician or someone who has experience in veterinary assistance in Alamosa, we need you. We are desperate for a technician or an experienced veterinary assistant in the shelter.
Oh, good plug.
Yeah.
I'm like with Tina Fey and Amy Poehler right here.
Right.
Yeah, exactly like. Am I supposed to?
What ways have we been working with the community to let them know about the shelter, and how are we getting them excited?
Well, we've been working with the community in lots of different ways. We have been working with Colorado Pet Food Pantry for a long time in terms of getting pet food and other resources to community members. We've been communicating through the San Luis Valley Facebook group about the change of address and all the timeline leading up to opening the new shelter. And then through word of mouth with our staff, with the adopters, people who bring in pets, our local municipal partners have also been communicating with the community about the new shelter and getting the community ready for it. So hopefully people have gotten the word and are excited about it. It seems like there's a lot of energy around.
Yeah, there is. And it's interesting. I think one of the things that really got people excited about it was to have our Lulu mobile here, because it's this huge branded mobile surgery unit, and we heard a lot when that showed up in town. We've been doing spays and neuters through that mobile opportunity that are now coming over here, or going to be moving over here. The other way, so just today at lunch, we had a celebratory lunch with the team here to, they've gone through so much change, and they have been troopers and flexible, and they're excited and engaged, and it was just needed to be celebrated. And while we were having lunch, a representative, I don't know, he could own the paper, I don't know, a nice gentleman came in from the Sentinel, is that?
I'm not sure.
The local newspaper. I'm sorry, I don't have the name on top of my head. It's really bad. But and he showed us that they had done 2 articles about the shelter, and that they have another one coming out, that they're going to be at the grand opening and covering that tomorrow. So we have had really good. We've been embraced really well by this community. And I have also heard from other folks that they have never heard about it, that they didn't know. So we need all the help we can get to get the word out and spread it.
Great. Here's a question about enrichment. Will there be enrichment opportunities and mental stimulation for the homeless pets outside of potentially interacting with staff and volunteers?
Yes, that is such a great question. We are always working to enhance the enrichment that we provide to pets across all of our shelters, and all of those techniques will be used here as well. So from in-kennel enrichment, things like ponds filled with peanut butter that they are occupied with, to puzzle feeders that make their mealtime more interactive and more stimulating to their brain, to the exercise that they'll get outside in the yards, to various programs that will train volunteers and staff to do with them. There will be a lot of enrichment opportunities available for dogs and cats. The cats, I don't know if, I'm not sure if it was caught on the video, but some of the cat kennels already have little scratchy mats on them. Those scratchy mats are here for their use, and then they'll go home with them to help them transition to their new home. So pretty much our whole arsenal of enrichment ideas and opportunities we will be using here at this shelter as well.
I love that question was asked because it's really very important to us, and it's part of socially conscious sheltering that animals are not allowed to suffer in a shelter. So if an animal is bored and starts, showing signs of stress, we're going to address that. Whether that means getting them in a foster home or transferring up to another location, we're gonna figure that out for that animal and not let them suffer.
So you brought up two things with that answer I'd love to follow up on. First, fostering. Can you tell the audience more about fostering and what foster opportunities may be here in the San Luis Valley, if any?
Sure. So fostering is a great option for some animals. Some animals may not thrive in a shelter environment or may need some time to recover from something medical, to adjust, something like that. And so fostering in the home of a local community member becomes a great option for them. We will be building a foster network. So looking for volunteers who are interested in getting trained and being supported and getting resources from us to enable them to foster some of our animals in their homes. We're actually, because we want to engage with this community so deeply, we'll actually be hiring a community liaison who will be building that foster network and really helping to get that going. So it won't be immediate, but in the very near future, we will be publishing and reaching out about volunteer opportunities up to and including opportunities to help us by fostering.
And that liaison is going to be such a key point because we are not wanting to just come and have animals come in and out of this building. We want to be an integral part of this community. We want to be relied upon. We want to be able to rely upon this community. And so that liaison role is going to do the fostering, the volunteering, but also connecting with community leaders and businesses in the community. And let's all do this together because it's going to take a village. It really is.
Exactly.
So April, you mentioned socially conscious sheltering. I know that this is a really big passion for the Dog Friends League and Colorado and the country. Can you talk more about what that means to people who may not have heard that term before?
Yeah, and we'll do it briefly because we have an hour-long presentation on that. So, but socially conscious sheltering is really a belief system, a commitment to some goals. And it doesn't say how you operate a shelter, right? There can be a shelter that's an open admission shelter or a no-kill shelter. They can all be part of this paradigm. And socially conscious sheltering has some tenets that we truly believe in. Some of the most important ones are transparency, like being honest with your community and your needs and your successes and when you don't have a success, and ethical decision making and collaboration. Like those are some of the tenets. We also believe that every animal needs a safe place to go. And so we don't get to say, we're not ever going to say, no, your animal can't come here. Any animal, well, okay, cat or dog or small mammal, really, a goat or a cow, but for any animal for which we have facilities, we will welcome them. And we just don't turn them away. We don't say, you're not healthy enough, you're not young enough, you're not pretty enough. I wouldn't be allowed in the shelter, but it's really, we're going to welcome all the cats and dogs that need our care. Other things, you address the medical and behavioral needs of the animals when they're in our care. So we make sure they're not suffering under our roof. When we transfer animals, we're very mindful about the source community and the destination community. So we can make sure that the animals aren't spreading disease, which is a very big deal, especially when you're going from out of state into state, but also that we're, like we touched on earlier, that animals in this community that you're taking animals out of are, those potential pet owners have opportunities to adopt those animals in that community, as well as moving the animals to where they have the most potential to get adopted and balancing that. We also do believe in making ethical, appropriate euthanasia decisions. So if an animal is suffering and our veterinary team cannot fix that suffering, or if an animal is so dangerous that we just don't feel it's ethical to place them in the community, we will make an appropriate euthanasia decision. And luckily, we don't have to do that often, but we know that that's something that can be a gift. What else?
The only other thing I wanted to add is that we really want to be there, and a tenet of socially conscious sheltering is to support our adopters and the pets post-adoption.
Mhm.
So if an animal gets home and something isn't fitting right, or if they're having a behavior or medical challenge that the owner wasn't expecting or doesn't know how to deal with, we want to be there to support them, help them make that transition smooth, or help them return the animal and find one that's a better fit, and so we can find a home that's going to be more appropriate for that animal. So really from, the adoption is just the first step, and then moving through, supporting that person, that family, and that animal as they become a more strong family unit.
And that makes me think about our tagline, compassion always, because we really believe that if an animal is adopted and it's not a fit, forcing that is the worst thing you can do. And we're never going to shame someone for bringing an animal back and saying, hey, I can't make this work, because that animal deserves the right fit and that person deserves the right fit. And so whether it's having to relinquish an animal, adopting an animal got out and it got picked up and we're reuniting you with an animal, there's no shame, no judgment, compassion always, we're together for the best thing for the animals.
Great. Someone had asked they want to donate items to the shelter. One, how do they do that? And two, what do they need?
Great. So thank you. Thank you for asking that and for wanting to donate. Any items that they want to bring, they can bring to the shelter. We have an Amazon wish list of things that we need, and so that's a great place to start looking. But really, anything that they're interested in donating, they can bring here. Our staff can help them understand if it's useful for us. And the great thing about our partnership with Colorado Pet Pantry, if there are things that are donated that we can't use in the shelter, we are able to help distribute them back to the community, to other pet owners who might be able to use them. And so there really is no waste. Things aren't going to go to the trash. It's a great way to get things reused so that more pets have access to the things that they need.
I do have to say that one thing we can never use is used litter boxes. Those don't go over so well. So anything else?
On average, how many pets did the former shelter receive and support in a year?
That is a tough question to answer a little bit, just because we didn't run it for that long. And so we don't necessarily have a full year's worth of data, but it seems like between 2 and 4 pets came to us every day. So over the course of 9 months to 10 months, we took in about 1,100 pets. That was just dogs. And we think that the size of that shelter potentially limited people's perception of the ability to take in every pet. And so we anticipate, but we don't know for sure, that number is going to be small when we look back on how this year goes in this new building.
And then there's cats.
Right. Now there's cats. And we've talked about this before, but what do you think if we had that best number? How many cats do you think we could serve annually?
We have the capacity to serve a lot because we have the transfer system that could go out. So we could serve thousands of cats. It's just, that would be a little bit for this team to handle initially, but there's we don't believe that we're going to have any limitations on the number of cats that come from this entire San Luis Valley, not just Alamosa, but the valley is 75 miles wide and 125 miles long. It's a huge valley. So we're welcoming animals from the entire valley.
Yeah, I don't think we would want anyone to think that we would be limited and so that they should be reluctant. We want to really expand to meet the need. And then we'll use our other resources to help adjust as we need to.
Can one of you also expand a little bit about our transfer program? It's something we've done for a very long time, but how do you see the transfer program working specifically here?
So I'll start and then you can add details. Sound good? Okay, so our transfer program is intended to make sure that animals are in the best place to get adopted, and that animals aren't euthanized in our source shelters, the source communities, for time or space just because they don't have space for them. We're really mindful about transfers because we want to prioritize transfers in Colorado first. We want to make sure we've taken care of animals in our backyard. You know, our support comes from this community mainly, and it's our obligation to ensure that the animals in our community are cared for. So along the Front Range in the metro area, we transfer quite frequently from the municipal shelters and other shelters that are in the, you know, within 50 or 60 miles, because some animals need medical care that they can't provide, and we have a great veterinary team. So that transfer is kind of a medical transfer. And then we next prioritize Colorado and other shelters in Colorado to move them to what has been to the Buddy Center or to the Malone Center. And then we will look out of state. However, when we work with communities out of state, we want to know that community well and create a partnership so that we can invest in that community, so that we can invest in humane education or spay and neuter or whatever that looks like, so that they no longer need us. They don't have the problem. We're not just taking away the animals and having the problem perpetuate. So we that's how we think about it. But then this is a unique situation, right? Because now we have one of our own league shelters in 4 hours from our Malone Center in Alamosa. So do you want to talk about that?
So we've been doing transfers with the Old Valley Humane League for the past year. And so we've gotten good at it. And having it all incorporated, now we're on the same computer system, and now all of our animals are in the same database. And so in a lot of ways, it'll make transfer smoother and easier. And we think that there will be more ability to keep animals here. You know, the size alone gives us a lot more flexibility to keep animals here in this community. So we'll use transfer in a couple different ways. We'll use it when we have animals that we don't feel like are getting the adoption traffic or the adoption looks that we want them to get. But we'll also use it when animals need resources that we don't have here. We're not, at least initially, going to recreate all of the resources that we have in Denver here in Alamosa. And so if there's a medical or behavioral need that we feel an animal needs access to, we will transfer them to one of our other shelters so that they can get that through the resources that we have there.
Yeah, it's kind of a spoken wheel. We have so many great resources at the Malone Center and the Buddy Center, and it didn't make sense to recreate the whole program and have all the expenses of doing that in a kind of a satellite facility. So we have the capability to deal with anything in an emergency situation or that's critical here, and then we can transfer them and do the more intense work up at the main shelters.
Great. Couple more questions. If I think an animal is being abused or neglected in the San Luis Valley, what do I do?
Well, you're sad first, but you, so through the Colorado Humane Society, so Colorado Humane Society is a program of the Dumb Friends League, and that is where we do our cruelty and neglect investigations. If you call Crime Stoppers is the best way to do it. You can stay anonymous, and you can go to the DDFL website as well, ddfl.org, and find report cruelty there. But Crime Stoppers is a great way to do it, because what happens is we have a central area where we can figure out who the right jurisdiction is, who needs to hear about this, and then we can disseminate that message out. I will say we often get situations where animals have no shelter or are too thin or not getting medical care that they need. Rarely do we actually see cruelty, but we do sometimes. And so, of course, that raises to a whole nother level. What does get frustrating for some people is that an animal's not getting cared in the way that they think they should get cared for, but the statutes don't cover that. So please know that we do respond to all of those. We investigate all of those complaints. It's either us through Colorado Humane Society, or we do it with one of our partners that has jurisdiction. And even if we go and we see that they're not violating a statute, we will keep checking up on them. 90% of the time we educate people when we go out and on these calls because they don't understand what they need to do to provide that best care for their animals. But there is that 10% that we just have to intervene in.
Will there be events in this community, and how will we be present outside of the shelter here in Alamosa and the surrounding communities?
Laura, you're in charge of events. Will there be events in this community?
I got that question turned back on me. So here I go. We actually have our 28th annual Furry Scurry event coming up on May 1st and throughout the entire month of May. Because we still are under COVID restrictions, we do need to be careful and have a virtual event, but we are hoping that the San Luis Valley rallies and supports us from afar. And we hope that will start a trend in having kind of a mini Furry Scurry here in the Alamosa community. I think also we hope to have events here, whether they be community events or educational events and other things, but we're still developing and working with partners to see what those look like.
And we know that Alamosa especially has a big heart and love of art. And so they, at the art festival, we're going to be a part of that. And we also are looking at, I had the pleasure of watching one of the city council meetings where the city council in Alamosa was choosing which art pieces they were going to purchase and have on permanent display. And I thought, what a great way to connect with the community. So we actually are going to look at a couple of pieces that weren't selected that we fell in love with and purchase one of those and put it at the shelter. So yes.
And our community liaison, the person that we talked about that we're looking for, that we're about to hire, is really going to help us figure out what the community here, where they go to engage, where they get together and gather and talk and build that community spirit that April mentioned, and help us plug in to those types of events. So things like farmers markets, we hope to have a presence at the places where people who live here go to be together.
Katie, talk more about that community liaison role. You mentioned that they would start probably a foster program in the months to come and really start working with the community. What else is that person responsible for? And then will you also talk about how we are trying to help increase jobs here and create jobs for the community?
Sure. So the fostering is just one way that we're looking, and we will be looking for people to engage by volunteering. There will be multiple different roles for volunteers to do. On the video tour, we showed the outdoor dog runs and dog walking and coming in to socialize with the animals, to sit and pet a cat and cuddle them and help them feel a little bit more at home is one of the ways. But there will be other things too that we look for people to volunteer to do with us. And that is going to be coordinated and organized by the community liaison. Like I said, they will also be looking for places where individually we can connect with other agencies, other nonprofits who are providing services in a way that we might partner together, schools potentially, the municipal agencies, to see the ways that we can support each other. And then also those bigger community events where there are multiple organizations, individual community members together, where we can work on humane education, where we can teach them about the shelter, we can talk to them about all the services that we provide. It'll be a great place where we can share information about our spay and neuter programs once they're up and running again, vaccine clinics, all of those things, how we're trying to integrate more fully into the community.
So have any of the shelter staff adopted a new pet yet?
Not since we've been in this building.
Yeah.
So not the
Which
last
is just
week
the last few
or
days.
so, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So it's not like they haven't been around animals, because the team that was over at Valley Humane League did move over with us. So thankfully they know that they're local folks that understand the community and understand their roles. And things are a little different. When an animal comes to the Malone Center that's been found, there's a process, and, there's putting them on the website, and there's going, here it's, oh, Joe, I took your dog to, and sometimes someone comes back and picks them up before, 10 minutes. And so there's a sense of community that's really amazing here. And we can't wait to be a part of that.
You asked me that, I forgot the other part of the question you asked me was about jobs.
Oh, yes, jobs.
I didn't answer that part. Since we started working with Valley Humane League and then started operating the old Valley Humane League shelter, we've about doubled the size of that team. This community liaison position will be another new position. And then, as April mentioned, we are currently looking for a veterinary technician. We really need one. And so we're always looking at how our team here needs to be structured and how big it is. We don't know if we're going to need to grow into this new shelter. So we'll be assessing that and figuring that out. And always looking at ways that we hire local people, because that's so important to us, that being the fabric of the way that we integrate into the community. And
kind of related, but not. The The building of the shelter was done by Alcon Construction, and they did a fabulous job and hired local subs. And it's just been, I mean, and I have to say, we just finished the major renovation program at the Malone Center, and the quality of work in this shelter is exceptional, and in many places even exceeds what we saw with that major multi-million-dollar project in Denver. So I'm quite impressed.
And just so you know, I don't think either one of you knew, but Alcon is on the call.
Oh, yay!
So thank you, Alcon.
Yes, we love it.
But I think that says a lot about community and community work and being able to use those here. So we talked a little bit about dogs and cats. We use a term called open admission. So before I ask the question, is this an open admission shelter or only cat and dog? If one of you can explain what open admission means, so the community knows, but then would we accept animals outside of dogs and cats?
Katie, all you.
So open admission really means what it says, that we, when we're open for business during our business hours, and as a philosophy, we accept any animal that comes to us for care. So we aren't going to look at your animal and say, oh, it doesn't seem like it's really adoptable. We don't want to have it in our shelter. We know that every animal needs a safe place to go. And so we are that safe place. In terms of what species we accept here, dogs and cats are definitely our primary species that we are set up for. We would like to keep it with dogs and cats for the most part. There are other types of animals that people have as pets, small mammals being the primary one. And if there are small mammals that are in need of care, we'll figure out a way to make it happen. It's not what we're equipped for. It's not what we built the shelter for, but we understand those animals need care too. And so we'll figure out how to house and care for them and potentially transfer them if that's what they need. Mm-hmm. But please no reptiles,
Please.
crocodiles.
No crocodiles.
Turtles. I know there's a crocodile farm around here. Don't bring us any of them.
Yeah.
I have one last question, and then I'd love to get your final thoughts on what this means to each of you. And we've got about 10 minutes left, so that will put us right on perfect timing. But when you look at the before and after, I would love for you to share with those that are listening and part of this hour, what are the main differences of the before shelter and the after shelter, and how are we able to help enhance the opportunity for both the community and the pets that are here?
We might need more than 10 minutes for that.
Okay.
No, you might. Yeah, well, I did. Yeah. I think it's really important in this conversation to mention that we are able to do this because we have such great support from our community. And, we are going to contract with city and county and the surrounding area to house animals that are picked up by animal control or need to be held. But that is probably going to be about 20% of our budget. 80% of our budget is going to come from people that care, that really want to make a difference and want to create better outcomes for the most vulnerable animals. When I say that, because I don't want this to look like a judgment of the old shelter. We have been so successful in building this community, telling our story, and people care so deeply about the work that is done here. And they can rest assured that it's going to be just the same quality work here as it is at our other shelters. Having said that, there was not a lot of funding for the old shelter, and it had been around for a long, long time, and it had way overrun its purpose, overserved its purpose. So it was a small building about the size of the lobby and the cat room here, and it had concrete runs for dogs with chain link, and a tiny little office / lobby / you walk in and you're right in the middle of it. And then there was a bathroom with the washer and dryer, and that was the laundry. And that was the shelter. Lots of outdoor spaces where they could go. So that was a really challenging space. And it was hard, I think, sometimes for community members to say, oh, I really feel good about bringing an animal to this space just because it was so challenging. You want to talk about some of the differences?
Yeah, sure. So I think it was kind of what you might think if you're thinking about like a throwback to a dog pound from an old time. And this is an animal welfare facility. This is a community center that we have purposely built to serve animals and their families. And that shows in a lot of different ways. One of the big things is our ability to do appropriate contagion control and to keep the animals safe, because all of the surfaces are so easily and completely cleaned and sanitized. And so it just really helps control disease and cut down on the spread of contagion. The old shelter had a central gutter where the water would run during cleaning. That was kind of an old style that was open. And each kennel has its own individual drain that will go to the city sewer. We're on sewer, which is amazing, instead of a septic system. So that's a big thing, the disease control, ventilation, all of that stuff to help make it more pleasant, but really to control disease. The next thing I think we mentioned during the tour is all of the natural light. The natural light in all of the animal areas just makes such a big difference in what it's like to be in the shelter for the people and the animals, truthfully. And it can really help keep them healthier during their stay here. The size alone is a really big thing. We have a lot more room for animals, and we have a lot more flexibility with how we use that space. And April talked a lot about it on the tour, that we can change the way we use the spaces for medical things, for behavior things, to really do what's best for the animals that we have. If we have a lot of puppies, maybe we'll put them all in one area, and maybe we'll have the adult dogs. It just depends on where they came from and their situation, but we can just be super flexible with it. I really like that we have the lobby that's dedicated to serving our community. There really wasn't a great place for us to interact with community members in the old facility, and interacting with our patrons is a huge part of what we do and how we help people to find their lost pets and all of that. And so having that dedicated space in the lobby is going to make a huge difference. So.
Thank you both for your time. Thank you for the tour. Thank you for showing everyone who joined us and those that might look at this later. Katie, last thoughts for the community?
We want to see you. We want people to visit us and to get to know our team and to learn about the work that they're doing. As soon as we're ready, we hope that you'll come volunteer with us, because we have lots of fun and important jobs that we need help with. And we hope that you'll adopt pets from us. We hope you'll bring us your pets when they need something, because we truly are the safe place for them to go. And we want the community to embrace that. And so really, we want to know you. We want to be part of this community.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And April, if you will give us your final thoughts, and we'll wrap up our call.
Great. So final thoughts. One is, we have done such a successful job at taking care of animal welfare on the Front Range, and it's going to continue to be a need, and we're going to continue to address it. I am so excited that we're starting to address animal welfare outside of the Front Range. This is something that I have wanted to do for years. I've heard about need for years. People have reached out to us constantly. You know, Katie used to be the executive director of Animal Assistance Foundation, and they wanted to impact this area, but they didn't have anyone to support to do this work. So I'm thrilled that this is our first foray into that. We're going to learn. We have a lot to learn, so help us learn. And I want the community to know this is your shelter. So use it. Let us know what you need. Communicate with us. Have expectations of us that we serve you well and we serve the animals that come to us well. And let's do this together, because it's not a shelter that has a responsibility. It's a community that has a responsibility. This shelter is a piece of this community, and there are so many other pieces that are vital. The local veterinary community has been incredibly supportive, and they are partnering with us. We need, city and county folks are partnering with us, the public through volunteering. So we all need to do this together, and we're thrilled to be here.
Great. And with that, I'll just do a quick reminder that tomorrow, unfortunately, with COVID, we are not able to do a huge celebration, but we hope you'll all consider joining us at 1 p.m. and our Facebook Live celebration. Mayor Ty Coleman will be here. Former Commissioner Darius Allen will be here, and we're very, very excited to see you then. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.